Hi everybody, I'm Joel, and this could be the most important video I make about photography. For years and years, I've seen so many photographers struggle with some of the most fundamental concepts of photography. Now, this isn't just new photographers. It's people who have taken classes, watched videos, and read article after article and spent hour after hour in forums, year after year, still struggling with the exact same thing. They get excited about photography, they research cameras and figure out what the best camera is, and then they make that investment, and then of course they want to learn how to use it, so they take classes. And now what is most content out there teaching you? Well, it's teaching you about the hardware and the settings, right? And then you want to try and use those settings for yourself and learn from that. So why are so many photographers then still stuck on this treadmill? Right? It's because all the settings and the hardware in the beginning when you're learning about photography actually are more of a distraction than a help. And so when photographers go down this path of hardware and settings, they're actually taking a long road around what are actually more important things in photography. Now, of course, it's true, you do need to master the settings, right? I mean, if we talk about Leonardo da Vinci was great with the art, but he didn't really understand the brush or the paint, right? Of course, we know that doesn't make sense. You do have to master the technical stuff. But I would argue in one sense, it's not as important when you're starting out. But how do you get off of this treadmill, right? How do you get off the treadmill and accelerate your photography? So remember when I said hardware and settings is kind of the long way around? Well, around what? Okay? Well, the biggest concept in photography, and perhaps the single most important thing, is light, because photography really is all about the light. I'm sure you've heard or read that somewhere else. Rick Sammon is really big with it's all about the light, and of course I agree with that. That's the main concept in photography. And you've probably also heard learn to see light like a photographer. Those are great pieces of advice, right? But what do they mean, and how do you actually do that? For me, it's really about a complete shift in thinking about photography. Okay, so let me give you an illustration. Now let's say we're all at Grand Teton National Park and we're in front of this beautiful mountain range, right? And we want to set up our camera and get the best shot we can. What most photographers are thinking is, okay, I'm taking a picture of a mountain. And that's what most people believe that they really are doing, all right? And I know it sounds so obvious, but here's the difference, all right? What I'm doing is making a recording of what the light is telling me about that thing, okay? Now it's worth repeating. When I make a picture, I'm making a recording of what the light is telling me about that thing. Now that is a huge shift in thinking from what most people are doing, because it really centers you on the core foundation of photography, which is drawing with light. If we wanted to make pictures with paint, we would be painters. If we wanted to conjure up images and feelings with sound, we might become a musician of some sort, okay? But as photographers, we are making images with light. We are recording light. Now, how can we go a step further, right? When we're talking about learning to see light like a photographer. Well, there are 4 characteristics that basically every professional looks at when taking a picture, all right? And this is the way I approach every picture when it comes to the light. Now, these are not the only 4 characteristics in total that I think about, but they are how I approach the light in every picture. First of all, we have the direction of light. That's the first characteristic. Where's the light coming from? And the way you can tell is by looking at the shadows, right? What are the shadows doing? Where are the shadows pointing? They will tell you where the light is coming from. Okay, now this can make a big difference in the drama, in the texture, in the mood, and the dimension that we have in our pictures, all right? Now, the second characteristic is quantity. In other words, how much light do we have? Now, this is pretty easy to estimate. If you're outside on a bright sunny day, you have a lot of light to work with. Now, if you're indoors in a restaurant at night, you have very little light to work with. So that's another clue you can use to help you figure out what settings are going to work and how you can use the light. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Okay? Now, the third characteristic is color. All right? Different light sources burn at different color temperatures. Basically speaking, from a bluish to orangish hue, although there are some other variations in there, some green with fluorescent, some more magenta, okay? But generally speaking, light sources burn at these different color temperatures. Now, understanding this will help you use the most accurate color settings, okay? To getting the best color out of your pictures. Now, the fourth characteristic is quality. So what do we mean by quality? Well, there could be a couple of different considerations with quality. Some people might think of the direction as an element or an aspect of quality. But for my purposes, specifically, quality refers to the transition from light to shadow, okay? So, do you have a very hard, sharp transition from the light to the shadow part of an image? Or do you have a very gradual shift where it gently transitions from light to shadow, and you've got this nice softness? Okay, that's what we call a soft light. Now, a hard light is when we have that sharp, abrupt, very well-defined edge between light and shadow, okay? So there's hard light and soft light, and neither one is necessarily, good or bad. It just depends on how you want to use it and the look you're going for. But if you don't know how to identify it, and if you don't even know to look for it, right, how can you use it to your advantage? Right, so how do you learn to see light like a photographer? Well, the way I suggest you do it is to consider light separately from everything else going on, all right? Especially in the beginning as you're learning photography. Now, it doesn't matter if you have a $6,000 camera or a $300 camera or a $100 lens or a $10,000 lens. It doesn't matter if you're using a phone. In fact, you don't even need a camera to learn how to see light like a photographer. And in fact, I would challenge you, the next time you want to go out and shoot, to not even use your camera. And instead, analyze and study the light and run through that checklist of 4 characteristics. And ask yourself, what is the light doing and how could I use it? Okay? Now, of course, these 4 characteristics of light are not the only things I think about when I'm making a picture, all right? There are all sorts of other considerations. The impact, the expression, the gesture, the story, all right? The contrast, the composition, the subject itself. But just when you're starting out, for a while, I want you to forget about all that other stuff and just consider light as separate from everything else. So look at what the light is doing. Don't even pay attention to what the subject is. It does not matter for the purposes of mastering this. Now, that doesn't mean every time you want to take a picture, you need to stop and run through this checklist and analyze the light. Of course, some moments are just going to happen. You want to get the shot. That's fine. I'm not saying don't do that. Now, the other great thing about this approach is once you understand what great light is and how to use it, you can get better pictures even if you're on full auto mode, right? Because if you have a nice subject and you understand that the light is amazing, you can get a good result just by pushing the button on auto mode. And that again is what a lot of photographers are missing, right? Because this is something the camera cannot do. The camera cannot identify or suggest a direction of light. It can't suggest quality of shadow, and it really can't tell you what color temperature the light is, okay? These are determinations you have to make yourself. Now, because so many photographers don't know about this and aren't doing it, they're stuck on that treadmill. But if you start incorporating these principles into your photography now, even on auto mode, you're going to notice a huge improvement in the interest and the impact of your pictures, right? I'm telling you, it's going to make such a huge difference in your photography. When you master light and you put these principles into action, you're going to accelerate much faster. Now, of course, you will come back to settings, right? You're going to learn about exposure, you're going to learn about composition and all these other great and necessary things with photography. But when you're starting out with the fundamentals of light, I think you're going to go much further, much quicker on the road to not only making the pictures you dream of, but maybe, if you choose to, even making some good money doing it. Okay? Alright, I hope that's been super helpful for you. And if you want to accelerate your photography even faster, please click the like button. You don't have to smash it, just click it. And also click that subscribe button for me. And also head over to my website. Thanks a lot for watching. Again, I'm Joel, and we'll see you next time.